Welcome to Dr. Jeffrey Roth's Looking Good and Feeling Great podcast, live from Las Vegas, with his co-host, Darrell Craig Harris.
Hi, this is Dr. Jeffrey Roth, your board-certified plastic surgeon in Las Vegas, Nevada. Welcome to the podcast.
Yay, episode 4.
We made it a 4.
Yeah, it's flying by.
Who'd have thunk it?
I know, right?
Who'd have thought? What's the over-under on that?
I don't know. We should check the odds.
I'm sure they have it. If it's Las Vegas, they will. They will.
Or they will soon anyways, right?
They will, yes, they will do. If you ask them, they'll give you a line on it.
So we were talking about earlier between us about the Botox, fillers, that kind of thing. And I actually had that done because I have a little crease above my nose that I showed you way back when. So we did filler first, right? What was the product?
Yeah, so we did a little bit of Botox first. My first line of defense for those sorts of things is Botox. So what's Botox? So Botox is basically a medicine that we put into the muscle. It stops the muscle from moving so much, and it kind of mellows the line up on top. So typically we would put it between the eyes. That's called the glabella. Area, but between the eyes, that's the 11s where people are like intense or mad or whatever.
Right, there's the squint.
Yes,
right?
And so, Mommy, how come you're mad? I'm not mad. I'm mad now, but
I was mad 40 years ago.
Yeah, right, no kidding. So people love that. Mm-hmm. And then the forehead, and then the crow's feet. People love the crow's feet.
Yeah.
And then in our office, we're able to do a little bit what we call the lifty thing, which is put a little Botox in the very tail of the eyebrow and lift that up a little bit.
It kind of like freshens up the look.
Yeah. People love the Botox. So Botox usually takes about 4 days to work. So people can't run home and go, hey, it's not working. Yeah. It takes about 4 days to work, and usually about 2 weeks is what it is.
And when you administer the Botox, you put basically it's sort of a cream, right? It's a numbing cream. Or how would you describe that?
Yes, we cater to cowards and chickens.
I'm a coward.
That's what we do best, and first timers. That's our specialty. So we make it as pleasurable an experience as you can with some guy with sharp, pointy objects. In as much as we go ahead and we put some real good numbing cream on those areas. We really numb it up real well, and then we use the itty bitty tiniest needle that we have, et cetera, et cetera. And then we do this thing, and it's usually really well tolerated.
Yeah, it's like a little sting.
Yeah,
or a little
oftentimes people say, "Oh, that was it," and they get themselves all worked up and this and that and all that kind of jazz.
So what's like the common questions that people would normally ask about like Botox and fillers? Actually,
sure. Is how long does it last?
Sure.
And usually it's about 4 months. Now, my really active people, the folks that are in the gym twice a day and that sort of thing, they tend to run through it a little bit faster, or those folks that are very expressive, actresses, hi, how are you, welcome aboard, they tend to go ahead and go through it a little bit faster as well. So that's the Botox issue. Now, some folks will say that they like the Botox for headaches and that sort of thing. Now, we could do a whole headache discussion, but where we put it,
because there's actually a lot of uses for that.
There is. So, Botox has been around for actually a long time, and the first uses of it were for this thing called strabismus, which is a muscle spasm of some of the eye muscles. So the
eye twitching.
Yes. Right. So and that's been around for a long time. And then they figured out, well, wait a minute, the wrinkles are kind of going away around these, and so it kind of got adapted. And then Allergan, being the smart company, they got it approved with the FDA. And so now there's also Dysport, and there's also Xeomin, and there's other competitors in that market in that market space. So, but it's been very, very safe. It's the most popular aesthetic medicine procedure in the world. I mean, tens of millions of people get it every year. And
it's sort of I wouldn't say it's an alternative to facelift, but it's an option that's not really invasive.
Well, sure, yeah. And so it's an in-house procedure, but it has such a good therapeutic index, which means it's hard to kind of mess it up. But you can't mess it up, and you got to be careful. And so I would warn people away from.
And you usually do that in your office, right?
I do it. So I would warn people away from getting it done at the Hard Rock Pool,
or from the nail lady.
And oftentimes, people would come to me and they would say, "Hey, doc, I was over at this salon and they came in and said, hey, do you want some Botox today?" She says, "Well, that's kind of weird." And then they were having it at a price that was so low. I'm like, I can't buy it for that. And so if it's too good to be true, it probably is.
Yeah, and you do want to be. You do want to be obviously careful with that. Right?
Yes, I mean it's still a procedure, and it's still medicine, and it's still your face and your health, and we've talked about this before. Is what price health, and to save $50 and over. But so make sure your injector is experienced and well trained, and make sure that the stuff they get is from the real place. Because I get emails all the time, but they just went ahead and broke up some ring. I want to say it's in the Midwest somewhere where thousands of dollars of counterfeit Botox got intercepted, and we get a fax about once a week from a quote unquote Canadian pharmacy.
Oh, right.
Which it could come from China, could come from Turkey, from anywhere, but it's not the real deal, and people get hurt. That's my thing. If you don't go to
it's your face.
It's your face. If you don't go to me, that's okay, but go to a place that you're going to get taken care of.
Sure.
And that to me is the big
So what's the main product that you use is actually the Allergan product?
Yeah, so I like the Allergan product, the Botox. The other interesting thing with that is the industry will stand behind it. And what I mean by that is, it was maybe about 10 years ago, we had 3 people in a row that the Botox didn't take, and I'm like, what the heck? I do it. I mix it up myself. I do it myself. I'm like, what is going? So turns out, long story short, it was in August in Las Vegas, and there was a pallet of Botox that was left outside too long and it denatured. And so they figured it out, and the Allergan company went ahead and sent a whole bunch of Botox. We got those people back in, and we fixed it, and everyone was happy.
Yeah.
So if you got that out of that quote-unquote Canadian pharmacy, that wouldn't have happened.
So you think that they're probably the most common company that provides that product?
Yeah, they're the 800-pound gorilla in that space.
Yeah, because they've been around for so long.
Yeah. And so those folks, but again, the other ones are fine as well. And if you can get it through an FDA process, et cetera, and there's some practitioners that use 1, 2, or all 3 of them. Sometimes, again, strange, but people's biochemistry is strange. We have folks that are better with one than the other, but by and large, I just because I've used it for so darn long, and I've tried them all, use it for so long, we usually go with the Botox.
So when folks come in to do the Botox, do they tend to just do one region? Do they do multiple?
Yeah, so typically,
or is there something you actually suggest?
Yeah, so typically, again, we listen and we figure out what the goals are, and so some folks want something as big as a facelift, and they say, oh yeah, can I just
because you want them to be realistic
Botox
too,
right here, and you're like, well, no, it's not going to work. So usually between the eyes, the forehead, the crow's feet are most common. Okay. Some uses which are off-label, but physicians can do that, is the masseter muscle, which is over by the angle of the mandible, if it's a little bit big, or if people grind their teeth a lot.
The back of the jaw kind of area, right?
Over there. And the masseter is actually the second strongest muscle in your body, because remember, we were
you're using it all day long. Right?
Well, yeah, we used to crack nuts with our jaws when we were cavemen and stuff. But and the quads obviously are the strongest. So that's the Botox thing. And the other thing too, it's not the people from Allergan don't go into Smith's and look for cans of bad mushrooms. It's basically it's a purified protein that's off the very tail end of it, and they gotta keep replicating it up and replicating it up. So
because a lot of people people who haven't had that, they don't really completely understand what that is. Can kind of explain what the actual medication is?
Yeah, so basically it's a medicine that we inject into the muscle, and then it stops the muscle from moving.
Right.
So that's kind of, and then knowing that and knowing the anatomy, then you're like, oh, okay, well, what should I go for and what should I avoid? For example, with Botox, where the pupil is, if you go above your eyebrow, so there's a no-fly zone. It's about 1 centimeter above there and about 1 centimeter on either side. The reason why you don't want to put Botox there is because there's another little muscle called the levator palpebrae, and that's in charge. It looks like a little hook, and that's in charge of raising up your eyelid.
Yeah.
So
you don't want a droopy eyelid.
No, bueno, not the look that most people want to rock.
Not a winning
so
look, yeah.
So that's why you have to know anatomy and all of that. So you just have to be careful.
And you'd be conservative anyways, right? You want to make sure they get the result that they really want.
Yes, you're talking to Mr. Conservative, and especially here in Las Vegas. I mean, some folks go to, I'm busting on my Beverly Hills folks, but it's usually not the plastic surgeons, but folks, you walk down Camden Drive, or you walk down Rodeo Drive, and people look like the Goodyear blimp. They look like the Macy's Day Parade, and you're like, what is going on here? And
and that's also the filler thing with the lips and all that.
They're overdone, they're overfilled, and it just doesn't. It looks freaky. And then on to fillers. So basically, the Botox, again, it depends on what tool you have in your toolbox. And so Botox is one tool. And then in the lower part of the face, we usually like volumization, meaning in the malar fat pad, which is this upside down triangle that you have kind of under the eye, in the nasolabial fold, which is that parenthesis that people have like around the mouth, the marionette line, which goes from the corner of the mouth down to the jaw, so the old Charlie McCarthy thing, old enough to know Charlie McCarthy, and that all comes from tissue moving as we get older, and so sometimes
just using your face, using expressions,
right. And so sometimes we are able to put some filler in there and basically not go from a hill to a valley to a hill, but to kind of fill in the valley, if you will, and so that you don't have as much shadow there. And if you don't have the shadow, you don't have such a different contrast, and it just goes away.
And what's the most common product or the primary product that you use?
Yeah,
for that?
so the primary product, and there's a bunch of them, and they're all real good, is the Juvederm. Which is basically
what I think what you used on for me. Right?
So, and I like it for a variety of reasons. It's like a gel, and nowadays they have lidocaine in it, which means that there's a numbing medicine actually in it, which is nice. And so as you go along, it feels better.
Right.
And so it's nice because you're able to do things with it. You can fill lips with it and volumize. You can put it in the nasolabial folds, which are kind of like cocking a crack. With the Voluma, you can put that like in the cheeks that we talked about to kind of give you some more of that. Yeah, not to give you apple cheeks or something crazy, but just kind of with age, it kind of it goes away.
Get droopy.
Yeah, and so we're able to do that. And then so we have those aspects. Now with us, with fillers, we like to do a dental block, meaning that just like you're the dentist, because again, we cater to cowards and chickens, we go ahead and we put that in so people are nice and numb. And I love it when I do the dental block and I leave the room and I come back and I'm like, are you ready? And I think so. I'm like, perfect. Just where we want you.
Awesome.
Yeah. And that's, for about 2 hours, you're, live funny. But people love it. And especially with the lips.
And the filler's not, it's not really painful. It's a little uncomfortable, but I know when you did mine, I had a bit of scarring, so you kind of helped break that up a little bit too.
Yeah.
Right?
So that was a bit a different project, but you bring it up is it's really nice to be able to kind of open up the scar a little bit and then put something in that so it doesn't quite scar down back in the same scar. So that
works awesome.
That's been really kind of nice. But especially the fillers is folks that do fillers in the lips without a block, I think are bananas. Because the lips and the fingertips have the most nerve endings of anywhere else on the body.
Right.
And so we numb that up really, really well. And people like, wow, that was great. I'm like, well, thank you. He says, no, the other guy didn't do it. I was like, oh. So it's really, again, cowards and chickens.
So we were talking about the sort of the overdone look. So what's your rule of thumb about doing lips? How do you, when you're doing the consult, how do you approach that?
There's a couple of things. Again, step one is listen. In as much as, and again, people usually tell you what they kind of want.
Right.
Some folks want, they come in with pictures of Kylie Jenner or Jolie or something like that. And some other folks, they say, well, geez, I really don't like the little itty bitty lines and wrinkles and crinkles around my lips. And I'm like, okay. And so it really sort of depends. Most females, and again, we have a few fellas too within lips, but most of them are females, and most folks want a little bit more in the pillars, which is kind of that Cupid's bow area in the upper lip.
Just, below the nose.
Right. And then a little bit in the pout. And and then of course make everything, sort of look symmetrical. Most lips of people walking around the planet, like myself, have a lip ratio of 1 to 2, right? So your bottom lip is about 2 times the upper.
And there's sort of a formula for facial beauty, right?
There is.
I don't remember what you can explain.
Yes, so there is that. Most girls, especially models, want a lip ratio closer to 1 to 1. And then, yes, you can get into the ratios of, what's the perfect, ratio, et cetera, et cetera.
That's very subjective.
And all that. And, and some... So I think it was Dr. Ellerberger forever in Beverly Hills. He used to work on that forever. What is beauty? What is the mathematical computation of beauty? And it's different. Well, there's some things that are tenets that are always good internationally. From Africa to Asia to Europe to the United States to whatever. And then some other stuff also are dependent upon geographics. And beauty sometimes will change. What I mean by that is when I very first started here back in town is everybody wanted to be a size 0, right?
So because it changes.
Everyone wanted to be Nicole Richie. Everybody wanted to be Paris Hilton.
Sure.
And then the Kardashians showed up.
Right.
And then all of a sudden everybody wanted curves, so which was interesting. And Brazil was also interesting in as much as historically, Brazilians kind of wanted kind of flat chest but kind of bigger butts. Okay. And then this was years ago, Baywatch showed up. And Playboy showed up, and all of a sudden the rate of breast implants in Brazil went up precipitously. So I don't.
It's always changing, right?
Yeah, I don't think it's the fads. You got to kind of watch the beauty fads per se.
Right.
But I think that if you're true to measurement, you're true to science, and you're true to kind of what beauty is supposed to be, you don't have to kind of jump into
and it is
what
subjective.
The next fad is. Oh, of course it's subjective. But again, I'm the guy that says no. Because some folks will come in and want to do something just outlandish, and I'm like, I'm not your guy.
Yeah.
So whether it's really, and we do some decent sized lips, but typically it is an aesthetic choice. And we talk about that. We say, okay, well, we can go from A to B. Great. You want to go to A to C? I said, let's go to A to B first, and then we'll go to B to C if you want to change that. So we kind of give them, that off-ramp if they want. But then if they say, no, this is really what I want, and here's all the pictures that I want, and this is why, I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah. So, it's just kind of like breast implants, too. We're not afraid of a big breast implant here in Las Vegas, you can imagine. But, but having said that, is we want to kind of really talk and kind of get into the whys, and then well, that makes sense. And let's
what the look they're going for,
right? And then what's the price you pay, for that, afterwards. So and it's funny when you talk about fillers and that kind of thing. We have a couple guys that they come in and they do
I was going to ask you about that. So fillers, Botox in terms of men, right?
Very big deal nowadays. It's really interesting.
It's less invasive. It's
less invasive. They don't want to take time off, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
I'm getting a lot of 50-year-old guys that are coming in, salesmen, and they tell me, because now they're competing for jobs as 20-year-olds.
They're competing with 20-something-year-olds.
Yeah, and whether it's you're selling timeshare, whether you're selling cars, whatever you're selling, and they're competing, and they're doing great. Some of these older guys. And I'm in my 50s, so there you have it. But basically, so the young guy,
they're competing with young, fresh looking,
right? And they're out to selling them 2 to 1 at the quarter, right? And so but the younger guys like, hey pops, how come you look tired? He's like, tired? I just sell you 2 to 1. So they come into my office, and we do a little Botox, a little filler, this and that, and I talk to them, and they say, Doc, this is great. He says, because I don't feel how my age, you know what I mean? I feel like I'm running full court basketball. I'm jogging 5 miles a day. I'm doing all that. And they say, why do I want to look my age? 1. 2 is your tired goes away. And then 3, he says, Doc, I'm a salesman. I said, yeah. And he says, sales is all about confidence. I said, yeah. He says, I feel more confident, and I go out there and I sell more stuff.
Yeah.
And they said, so the ROI on you, Doc, is great. I said, well, as long as I'm in the black, I guess I'm okay. Yeah. And he's like, oh yeah, no, I'll keep coming back.
Do you think that? I mean, also because we live in Las Vegas or on the West Coast, particularly here, desert. Do you think that affects how the look, the aging?
Oh, sure.
So maybe it makes you age a little bit quicker, right?
Oh, sure. So the UV light is not your friend, especially here in Las Vegas. And I used to, I grew up in the 80s, in the 70s and stuff. You're running around with, Hawaiian Tropic. And
there's tanning beds, all that stuff came in.
Terrible.
Right?
And the nurses were the worst because they would do the baby oil. But then they would put the iodine in the baby oil and just cook themselves. And so now, after a couple of basal cell carcinomas off and everything else, I used to make fun of the guy underneath the umbrella. Now I am the guy underneath the umbrella.
Because you learn, you see the damage, right?
And I have a little one, and her swimsuit looks like a burqa. And my wife's like, really? I'm like, it's pink and it's got a dolphin. What do you want? Right? And I said, she'll thank me when she's 30.
Yeah,
and we see that all the time in surgery, especially with women. It's because you can look at the décolleté, which is the area on the chest where kind of like just underneath where the neck is, where you would see a piece of jewelry and stuff.
Right.
But then when you do breast surgery, you actually look at the breast, and you can tell the gals
it's different skin, right?
It's different skin because the ones that have been sun worshippers, the ones in the décolleté, it's brutal, and the ones that have worn tops and stuff, and never saw skin, completely different skin. So the answer is, and especially now, the sun just isn't the same. It's more brutal, and we see a lot of that, and we have a really good esthetician
better education,
service.
But still,
we have a really good esthetician service in our office, and they now all the time calm down the skin. And the first thing they say, oh my God, let's calm this down first, and kind of go from there. And then there's the skincare stuff, which is the top of the line. And now we have ourselves, we're going to introduce pretty soon a new sunscreen, sunblock actually, which I think is phenomenal. We would know we're going to private label it. We've been working on it for a long time. We'll talk more about that.
Right, sure.
But having said that, and they go ahead and look at bad skin all day long, and so the folks that again we've made fun of, for a while, the ladies walking down the street with the umbrellas and everything else like that, they have absolutely the right idea.
Yeah. And they look young and fresh. And,
they have absolutely the right idea.
Yeah.
So UV light, not your friend. So especially here in Las Vegas, it's imperative that we do more about that, and then wear hats and stuff. And in Australia, because you take a whole bunch of white people and put them down where it's really hot in Australia, and the melanoma rate goes bananas. And so,
and they're also big sun worshippers too.
They used to be. So because then that really has changed a ton. Because now, if you're in elementary school, you can't run outside and play unless you have a hat on.
Oh, interesting.
And they have this slip, slop, slap, little PSA thing. Basically, is everybody they want them to have long sleeve shirts on. They want them to have hats on, floppy hats. They want them to have
because you can avoid so many issues.
Sunblock on there. It's for them. It's a public health problem. Sun and melanoma is a public health problem there because so many people got that.
Sure.
So we now the United States are really kind of looking towards those guys to see
That's
how
interesting.
better we can.
And also, originally, it's actually I was talking to a friend about Australia and New Zealand, and he's a British friend, and he goes, "Well, the criminals went to Australia, and the crazies went to New Zealand." And I was laughing. He goes, "No." Which of course that was a long time ago. But.
Yeah, that was a bit ago. And the other thing is there was this great article. It was years ago, and they took a picture. I forget which tennis match it was. They took a picture of the crowd, and they went back to the crowd and they said, "Hi, where are you from?" Right? So I don't know if it was a French Open. It's some international tournament. And the Aussies, they wear the hat and the long shirts and the desert, stuff. And the Americans, of course, were wearing halter tops, and nothing.
Yeah,
so you could
not even worrying about it.
Right. And I think that kind of has changed. I like to think that we have become a bit better.
Yeah. Well, we've learned a lot since then.
Yeah, you would hope.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where that all is. So skincare we do again. Prevention of bad things is kind of what we do is, and to educate as much as we can as well.
And we were talking just change subjects a little bit, but we were talking about the breast augmentations and breast implants, and it seems to be even from shows like Botched and some of these other shows that are plastic surgery related, that a lot of people nowadays are wanting to actually have their implants removed. Are you seeing that too, or how is that?
We are seeing that. We're seeing for a couple things.
For various reasons, I guess.
Yeah. So, and again, implants aren't lifetime devices.
Right.
Anything that we, mankind, put into the body, whether it's a total knee or a chemotherapy port or whatever, we can't make it as good as God makes it, right? So,
sure.
Okay, so that's, of course, step one. So most stuff that we, kind puts into a body usually has to get backed out at some point in the body.
Right.
So that's number one.
What's the typical length implant should actually be in?
So basically most implants, if you get a good 13, 15 years out of an implant, that's pretty good.
Wow. Okay.
So they're not permanent devices. So if you have one set of implants, you're probably looking at least one operation more down the line. Okay. So the old wisdom of breast implants was gosh, they got to come out at every 10 years.
Sure.
That sort of has gone away in as much as...
And they were different quality.
Oh, it's a whole
implant,
it's a whole different world. And we talk about this in the office all the time is cars have gotten better. The past 20, 30 years, we have crumple zones. Now we have safety glass. We have seat belts. We have airbags.
Technology updates.
We have all of it, right? So it's the same thing with breast implants, right? Breast implant technology. The old implants back in the day had a leak rate of 50% at 10 years, right?
Wow.
So that's where you got they got to come out at 10 years because half the time they'll be leaky. So nowadays that's much different. But again, in the growing up in Las Vegas thing is when I very first came back to town, and some of the older showgirls that have had them in for forever and finally decide to get them out after 20, 30 years, whatever, or folks that have had leaks or whatever, you take them in the operating room. Mm-hmm. So those particular implants, the gel itself was like a consistency of maple syrup. right?
Oh, okay.
So you get in there to go ahead and take this out, and it's like maple syrup all over the place.
Right.
It's a mess. In fact, at Desert Springs Hospital, they probably still don't have this on the thing, but you go to the operating room and they have the breast implant removal tray. And basically, it had a spoon that they would sterilize, and you'd actually kind of scoop this stuff out.
Yeah.
So anyway, that went away. The new ones are really cool, and they're cool for a couple reasons. We do about 80% silicone, about 20% salines nowadays, right? So the silicones nowadays, if you can even poke a hole in it, shake it, and nothing's supposed to come out. So that Gummy Bear or cohesive gel implant, everybody's using those nowadays.
Right. What's your thought? I mean, I know there's a lot of, I don't know, controversy is the word, but people that have had leaky implants with the original silicone way back when, that related to like health conditions or possible health conditions. What's your sort of thought on that?
Well, there's a couple three things. Is the new silicones I think are terrific and have never been better, and I think for a variety of reasons
it's really a different.
That's
thing.
better. It's a whole different animal. So to get to your first question is you don't have to take them out at 10 years. Mm-hmm. And again, I've seen some implants, salines that have been there 30 years. They look great, and I wouldn't touch them. I've seen stuff that have to come out in 6 months. So it depends on how your body handles them.
Does it also depend on the doctor, do you think?
Well, I like to, that's my bias. I don't have a randomized prospective study, etc.
Sure.
I will say, I will say there's a outfit called Sientra, and they make implants, and they only sell them to board certified plastic surgeons, and their rate is significantly different than some of the other competitors that sell them to non-board certified plastic surgeons. Now again, that's a completely biased statement.
Right.
The Sientra people say it's because of our implants, and the plastic surgeons say it's because the guys are putting them in. But
explain the difference. So since you bring that up, because what's the difference between a board certified and a non-board certified plastic surgeon?
Sure. So a couple things is we can get down the rabbit hole on this a bit, but the bottom line is, how did I get to be a plastic surgeon? Right. Well, so I went ahead and I went to med school and went to I did it the old way. I did 7 years of general surgery, 2 years of plastics, and then I did a year of hand and microsurgery. Okay.
Sure.
But what you do is you go to a university-based program that's recognized by the American Board of Plastic Surgery to train plastic surgeons. Okay, so
that's what they specialize in.
Right. That's right. And by that, you have done reconstructive surgery. You have done aesthetic surgery. You've done all these different the whole gamut of things. You've seen how things gone wrong. You've gotten yourself or your professors have taught you how to get in and out of trouble. Or and most specifically is for the most part is those folks usually are trained to spot potential problems before they even are problems. So that's key. All right. So that's number one. So it takes a long time. It takes a lot of hours, contact hours, and then you sit for your boards, which are not easy to pass, et cetera, et cetera.
And they shouldn't be.
Right, and they should. It should be hard. And they are. And then there's also continuing medical education things to go ahead and keep up your boards and everything.
Sure.
So it's
ongoing process.
It's right. It's a flaming hoop that you have to jump through and then keep jumping through it, which I think helps a lot protect patients, but then two kind of keeps you motivated to keep up to date. Most of us are really self-motivated folks anyways.
Yeah.
But having said that, so it takes a while to go ahead and do that. Some folks that want to be in the aesthetic world, and it's hard to blame them. I don't know how some of the family practice guys and internal medicine guys and gals do it because the big insurance companies or the government want you to see a patient every 7 minutes. And you're not getting paid diddly for it. And so some guy rolls up to your office. Oh, and then the insurance. I was
going to say that's a whole other.
You have to have somebody full time to appeal everything. It's just a nightmare.
Sure.
And so some guy rolls up to your office building with a laser and goes, "Hey doc, you want to do something for cash money?" And they go, "Well, what?"
Right.
So it's very tempting, and so I don't blame these guys.
Sure.
Now, having said all of that, so some guys will go ahead and say they're quote unquote cosmetic surgeons and that sort of thing, but they haven't had the the training, and they haven't had the experience, and they haven't had, or they may not have hospital
and
privileges
many
to do that.
patients, they may not understand the difference.
They don't know. So if you say, what's the difference between the plastic surgeon and cosmetic surgeon? Do most people walk around the street?
Right.
They won't
Sure.
know. So and we at the Aesthetic Society and the Plastic Surgery Society have for years. I mean, I've been hearing this for 30 years. Oh, we have to educate the public and blah blah. And we do a poor job. Including me, we do a poor job of delineating the different.
And this is, this is one of many great forums to actually get into that, because I think it is important for people to understand. We actually talked about, I had seen a doctor, a dermatologist here in town, and I thought I was seeing the doctor. I was actually seeing the physician's assistant, but nobody told me.
Yeah, well, that's a whole another thing.
But
to your point on the board stuff is there's a couple, we know of a couple of OBGYNs that put in breast augs or do tummy tucks in their office, et cetera, and just what gets me is just the safety issue. And if something goes bad, now what do you do?
Right.
So. And stuff goes bad every now and then.
Even for any doctor.
It happens to everybody. It happens to me. And you got to return to the OR and do your thing, and you're trained to handle it. And that's the thing is if people get hurt, and that's the thing that really bothers me.
Absolutely. Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah. And plus, you spent all those years getting that education, getting the experience. And you hate to see patients come in to see you after they've had those bad experiences.
And that happens too. And again, we all have complications, all of us. So you do enough surgery. You do 200 cases, let's say you do 200 cases a year, 1% chance of this. Well, that's 2.
And there's physiology. The patients have different issues.
So yes, so that's that's kind of where that is. Right. Yeah, my thing is can you have somebody who can kind of handle, if things sort of make a left turn.
Right. Yeah. So getting back to the breast augmentation and that kind of thing.
Right.
So. What did you prefer, the silicone over the saline?
Well, it's not really what I prefer per se. It just depends on what's the goal of the patient. And most patients say, "Well, geez, doc, I want to look, feel natural," and I usually steer them a little bit towards the silicone. Also, my really athletic gals, when there's a ton of those here in Las Vegas, I steer them also towards the silicone because there's a little less rippling on the sides.
Right.
Now, all girls, 100%, if you put implants in and they bend over at the waist, you're going to go ahead and feel and see ripples. That's just anatomy.
Right.
But most people walking around, especially on the sides, you don't really kind of want to see that.
Do you kind of, is your goal in that situation when you're doing the consult, are you trying to get them to have the most natural look? I mean, obviously it depends on what they want.
It depends. Like I said,
some people want.
Yes. So here, and it's odd because here in Las Vegas, some girls come in and say, "Doc, I want to be able to have breasts that I can put a drink on top of them."
Right. Sure. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So
and some of them, that's part of their business, right?
Yes. Some of them, it's their currency. If they're in the entertainment industry or they're models or
cocktail waitress,
that kind of stuff. But most folks in our practice want to be about a full C, small D. They want to have them look good in a swimsuit or evening gown.
Right.
They can dress them up on Saturday, but they can still play softball on Sunday. And most of the time, we're able to kind of really pull that off. And my favorite word is proportion. Unless they want to, aesthetic choice, want to be out of proportion a little bit, and then we talk about that as well. So do I think implants are safe? Yes, I do. Otherwise, I wouldn't put them in.
Right.
And do they have a good safety profile, et cetera, et cetera? Yes, I think all of that.
What do you think in terms of? I know we were talking also about men and plastic surgery. Do you think that? I mean, I guess maybe in the last 5 or 10 years that's become more prevalent, right?
Well, yeah, the men in plastic surgery thing, and we can do an hour on that as well. It's about 10% now. If you asked me that question 20 years ago, it'd be 1%. More and more guys are coming in because, again, they're active. 50, 60, 70-year-olds running marathons. They're playing full court ball.
Yeah, and 70 years old today is not like 70-year-old 30, 40 years ago. Right?
No, they're not in rocking chairs on the porch, and so these guys are out and about, and so they don't want to look that and so we're able to do that. And whether, again, popular stuff with men is rhinoplasty, Botox fillers, we talked about that, liposuction, and it's funny too because even the most macho of guys come in for this stuff. My cops and my firemen, love those guys.
Blue collar guys,
first responder. Oh, and they're spectacular guys. They go running towards danger, so God bless them. And the cops usually when they're about 40s, 50s, and then the gun belt starts kind of digging in a little bit, so that don't like that.
Sure.
And then the firemen, they all want to look like they just walked off a calendar, those guys, and they're great. So we go ahead and we take care of those folks, and they dig it. So,
right.
And again, nobody has to know. That's the thing. And to that is we sometimes have. We have husbands and wives that are both in the practice, but they don't know they're both in the practice.
Oh yeah, you mentioned that before. That's fun.
Yeah, and so we cognizant of that.
Do you we were talking about health and wellness and kind of the holistic approach. Do you talk a lot about that in terms of your practice and as far as diet and healthy lifestyles?
Yes, so we talk about it all the time. And again, my first set of options usually starts out with diet and exercise.
Right.
Whether
because you want them to have the best outcome. Right?
Absolutely. And again, folks come in and we talk to everybody, but we talk about what their goals are and such. And you don't want to operate on somebody that wants to lose 70 pounds,
sure,
because you don't want to do a tummy tuck and come back and redo the tummy tuck.
Right.
So, but we talk about that, and we talk about nutrition, and where I was trained again back in Philly. Some of these guys were bonkers about nutrition, and what we found, especially with plastic surgery, is if you have a wound and they have a poor nutritional status, you can do the best surgery in the entire world. You can swing this great flap, and it's not going to heal.
Sure.
If you get a 90-year-old lady that's in a nursing home eating saltine crackers, okay, she's not going to heal.
Right.
And so sometimes you have to slow down and go, okay, that's great. We can go ahead and do this.
You want them to have the best results.
Absolutely.
Right?
So, but they need protein. They need veggies to go ahead and heal things up, and so that's part of it. We talk about smoking. Smoking is the bane of a plastic surgeon's existence, because, and I won't do facelifts on smokers.
That's interesting. So what's the reason?
Reason is
you also have vascular issues with that too, right?
The vascular issue is the key. Oh, first of all, skin on smokers versus non-smokers is not close, and my estheticians will tell you that. One, two is it's a vasoconstrictor, and so
which means for people,
vasoconstrictor is basically constricts the blood flow. You don't get the blood flow to where you need it. Tightens it up, right? So basically, the procedures that you have tension on purpose, facelifts, breast lifts, tummy tucks, because on purpose
you're fighting gravity,
putting on tension. Right, you're putting on tension. What you don't want is a lot of tension. You want to get as much blood flow there as you can.
Sure.
So that's why we go ahead and say, no smoking. So basically, and you talk to my buddies and everything else, because back in the 70s, everybody smoked, right?
Sure, right.
He would tell me, he says, every smoker, every really problem facelift that I've really had, 100% have been smokers.
Interesting.
And he had a bunch
That's
of
something you don't really hear about.
And he had a bunch of scared straight photos, which were terrible, and everything else like that. But basically, so smoking, it's bad for any surgery, and even breast dogs. Hardness around a breast dog, mostly in smokers.
Does vaping come into that same category?
Yes. Well, yeah.
Which has become, of course, a huge...
Vaping is a tremendous issue. And with my work with the Clark County Medical Society and Nevada State Medical Association, we've really, it's eye-opening of how many junior high school and high school kids vape. And it was originally, you can go ahead and get off of it.
They make it fun and easy.
And it's flavored again. And
also they end up taking in a dramatically higher level of nicotine, right?
When it's a higher level. Two, California, I think, just banned flavored pods or tobacco, because again, this is out of the...
It appeals to kids.
This is out of the tobacco playbook from 50 years ago of making candy look like cigarettes, making flavored tobaccos to get these kids hooked and everything else. And so especially Juul is this thing, you can go ahead and do the Juul thing and smoke blueberries. Okay, fine.
And they're dealing with that in Europe at the same time.
Well, it's tremendous. Well, guess what? One of the major tobacco companies just took a 30% stake in it. So what do you think's going on? So for me, and I tell everybody that's in earshot it's a any sort of tobacco nicotine type product. Vasoconstrictor, however you get it into you, is not good around, not good period, but especially not good around
plastic surgery
in general.
Sure. It's interesting because there's so many aspects of that besides just the surgeon, right? I mean, the health and the aspect of it that to have a great outcome. it's interesting because a lot of people don't think about that stuff, I think.
Yeah, sure. And again, we're in a society or world where it's kind of everything's drive-through, you know?
Exactly.
And,
they want the quick result.
Right.
Yeah.
And the thing is, too, is that surgery is real surgery, and I wish I had a magic wand to make things heal up fast. But the body's going to take the appropriate amount of time for it to heal up and put scars on and all that sort of thing.
Yeah. What's, being that we live in Las Vegas, what's some of your... And you've been here since, like you said,
77.
Yeah.
So it's been a minute.
It was like such a different place. Yeah. What's some of your memories of growing up here, kind of, and also starting? You didn't start your practice here initially. You went to school and all that. But what's some of your memories of that?
Oh, so well, I mean, there's a ton of memories coming out of Las Vegas, and we talk about being gainfully employed in Las Vegas, and I've had some.
We talk about the showgirls.
I've had some odd jobs, like where blackjack dealer is actually an occupation and stuff like that.
Exactly.
And those guys work hard, by the way. But you put that on your 1040 form, it's just it's interesting, right? And a lot of those people have actually become your customers, right? Oh, absolutely. Oh, no. The game
patients, I should say.
Yeah, and so those folks, it's interesting because it's not just the showgirls and that kind of stuff. It's folks that have worked hard for a long time. And it's funny because you get one scout that comes in, and then kind of the rest of them comes out.
Yeah, let me know what he says.
so again, we've done the gals at Tao, the gals at Marquee, the gals at Hooters, the gals at all that kind of stuff. Sure, Hard Rock.
Yeah.
Lots
of gorgeous.
But we've also done. We were really popular for a long time there with the housekeeping department at the Bellagio in the slot department.
Interesting.
And they were great.
Yeah.
They were great folks, and they were most of them moms.
And that's really probably considered one of the top properties in the world for casinos.
Absolutely. And they work hard and everything else. And they've, if you have babies and they want to go ahead and get things fixed. So again, it sort of depends. So
like to the tummy tucks, the Botox,
that sort of stuff. So and they were great. So it sort of depends on and that sort of stuff. But yeah, I've had a few interesting jobs.
So we were talking about
here in Vegas.
So tell us about your.
So one was it was outside. I was the guy that would at Thomas and Mack Center when it was new would go ahead and tell you where to with the guy with the flashlight.
Yeah.
Put your I did that.
You're that guy.
I was that guy. Did that one. I was a ramp agent at Delta Airlines, which is loading planes. So that
is no easy job in Las Vegas in the summertime.
We measured it. I was college kid, so you don't know anything.
You're having fun. Yeah.
It was 120 degrees on the tarmac, and there was A and B gates. There was no C and D gates.
Yeah, it was very small.
Okay,
yeah.
A and B gates. And then you would go into the air conditioning, which was 75. So you'd go from 75 to 120, 75 to 120. Not good for you.
Yeah.
And then the underbelly of the plane, you have to go ahead and stack them a certain way. So you're kind of walking around like a hunchback.
Oh my God, I can't even imagine.
Underneath there. And then folks would have their doggies and stuff. We would take really good care of that. I never saw anybody intentionally hurt a bag. Just so you know.
just for the record.
But the Samsonite commercial with the gorilla on top of it and all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
So no. A couple, 3 things. I never saw anybody intentionally had a bag, and I've never, ever saw any stealing. Ever.
Yeah.
So that was like a big deal. And
it was actually, it was hard to get those jobs back then, right?
Yeah. So that was I got really lucky. And I was a kid, back then and such. And so it was an interesting job. It was a great job for a kid. So we did a lot of that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And a couple interesting things with that is we also would run up and clean the planes, right? So we clean the planes out.
So
we get to do that too.
Okay.
Yeah. And so there was one job, of course, where you put the thing up for the lavatory and it goes into the big septic tank.
Right.
That was always a good time. And then the second one is you would go up into the cabin, and you would be sweeping up the cabin, and I knew I was thrilled. One of the best days on the job was when the airlines got rid of ashtrays.
Oh yeah,
that's how long this was.
I know, because people forget about that. Used to be able to smoke. They had the smoking section on the plane.
And we would have to dig out ashtrays and butts and everything else. It was terrible. So we were thrilled when that went away, and that's how long ago that was.
Wow. So, what's great about, I've had some crazy jobs too myself, and What's great about that, actually, is when you are successful, when you've worked really hard to get to a certain place in your life, you look back at that, and it makes you appreciate the journey. Right?
Yeah. So, and one, to appreciate the journey, and I appreciate hard work.
Right.
The guys out there riding around the tugs and lifting luggage, they're working hard.
Yeah, especially here.
Those guys are working hard. The guys at the counters dealing with people all day, they work hard. And Delta was a great company to work for. It was and that was kind of a funny thing too, is because back then they wanted because there was no, like the TSA was completely different.
Sure,
and they wanted everybody they actually wanted everybody to wear suits on the plane. So basically so we went to...
Yeah, because you used to dress up to go fly, right?
Yeah, it was a big deal. Yeah. And they would have silver and everything. And at the very, very beginning, the flight attendants, stewardesses back then, were all nurses because they thought flying was dangerous, quote unquote dangerous, in the 40s and 50s and 60s. In fact, our mom, she graduated nursing school and wanted to see the world, and she wound up working for TWA.
Wow.
And that's actually when she was... when she was on a layover, and so that's actually how she met our dad, which is a whole nother story for another day. But one of her favorite, one of her favorite stories.
Your brother's over here laughing.
Just so you know. I know he doesn't know whether to laugh or cry or both. So
I haven't met your mom, but I love your dad.
So one of her favorite stories is she was taking a flight out of Boston, and they still do. They let you take live lobsters if you're leaving Boston.
Funny.
And 6 lobsters got loose, and so she was on her hands and knees chasing after lobsters.
Was it an emotional support lobster?
Yes, right. So yes. I know they have those back there. So people are like, eek a mouse or eek a lobster.
Right,
so she was running around chasing after lobsters.
How funny.
So on an airplane, but but Delta was great. My interview for Delta was wild because it was myself and another guy, college guys, and so they said, "Okay, guys, you're ready to go, but you got to get interviewed by the home office." Where's that? Atlanta. Delta's out of Atlanta.
Oh.
And they said, "Great." I said, "When do we do that?" I said, "Well, tomorrow, 7:30, and wear a suit." Okay, so we both show up, and we're gonna get on this plane, and we're gonna go to hot Atlanta. So we go ahead and we get on the plane in Atlanta, right? And so we get off. You two guys, okay? And they put us on a tug and go over to Delta headquarters, which is this huge granite building, right? So we go up there and we finally find our guy and this and that, and so we both sit down. He says, "Okay, well, I see this is in order, this is in order, and this is in order. Okay, great." He says, "You fellas have any questions?" We're like, "No." They're like, "Great. Okay, well, you're hired. Your interview's over." And it was 5 minutes tops. Okay, all the way to Atlanta. Okay, 5 minutes tops in a suit. It says, "Oh, and there's a flight leaving for Las Vegas in 10 minutes. Maybe you can make it."
How funny.
So they goes and put us on the tug. We're going across the tarmac, right? It was
best sound effect ever, by the way.
Right? So we got across the tarmac. We'd make it, and hey, we're waving, and the guy's like, "What the hell?" And so they don't know, we're going to Vegas, like, "Who are you guys?" And, okay. So we go ahead and we get on, and we're running and everything else. I get sweaty in a suit because Atlanta's hot.
Absolutely.
So it's sweaty. So we finally go back, and then we actually allowed ourselves to have like one drink on the way back. So, "Hey, you guys made it. Hey, have a drink." So
jet setters,
right? No, right? And the other guy actually got disqualified. They did extra because back then it was like a big deal. They did X-rays of your back, and he had something wrong congenitally with his back.
Oh, interesting.
So I show up to work, and where's Bob? And Bob didn't make it. Something wrong with his back. Oh,
didn't make the cut.
Didn't make the cut. So so back was good enough then, I guess, to lift stuff.
Yeah, that's all. I mean, it's because I fly all the time, and I see those guys. That is a hard job.
Hard job. Well, the other thing too is. You're not supposed to, the weights of the thing. You're not supposed to be over, a certain weight.
Right.
They get through, and so, or you have a little box. It's like 5 inches by 5 inches, and I don't know if
it weighs like 75.
Yeah, I don't know if they have plutonium in it or what, but it's dense as hell. And I actually, my other crazy job, I worked for UPS for a while.
That's another hard job.
Those guys.
Yeah.
But I was a sorter. And what that meant was I was working through college, and they had this big slide, as you can imagine, and all these packages kept coming in with this slide.
Sure.
And then you had to memorize zip codes.
Is that like a Lucille Ball moment with the chocolates and the conveyor
belt? Yes, but no eating. So, and a couple things with that job. That was actually a great job for a kid, for a college kid.
That is a great,
It was a great job for a college kid. Well, first of all, you didn't have. you didn't have to wear the uniform, right?
Oh,
in fact, they didn't care what you wore.
Because you're in the warehouse.
You never saw people.
Right.
And they didn't. They work boots. That was the only thing they cared about. So guys would have wife beaters and shorts from junior high school
and
work
boots.
They don't care. And work boots, and they don't care. So
that's
cut off
like
scrubs.
quite a fashion statement,
right? And so you always knew who was walking home from the UPS thing because they were in nothing but work. Yeah, and work. So, but they had you had to memorize all of the zip codes, and then it was a moving gate, and it was 5 colors, 3 tiers.
Wow.
And so you had to figure out which one goes into which
fast,
thing,
right?
and it keeps moving and all that kind of stuff. And you don't want to get caught in heavy machinery and stuff like that.
That's funny.
And then they would change the zip codes on you, and so you have to figure that out. But from there, then it went out to the trucks, and the trucks got them to everybody. But those guys would put those brownies, we called them brownies, the trucks. If there's 2 inches on either side, they can make it. And
I know, it's
those
crazy.
guys are unreal. And so are the FedEx guys and
Tetris.
And
DHL.
And DHL. All those guys, especially back east,
Yeah.
because itty bitty tiny roads, and those guys put those things in places.
So did you do that all through college?
No, I did it for one summer.
Wow.
In college, and it was great. It was great because it paid a tremendous amount of money. So I was in and by that I mean, you're gonna love this, is when I was in college, and I was there from 84 to 88, and it was $9 an hour. Okay, which was
good money.
Which was really good money. My work study thing was $4 an hour at college.
Sure.
And now we're talking about being a doctor. Okay, you're gonna love this one. So basically is when you go through college and you go to medical school and all that kind of stuff, and all of that, and then you get to be residencies, right? So you're an MD, I'm a doctor, hi, I'm Dr. Roth. Okay, fine.
So 7 years later.
100 years later, and so you're finally able to. They actually give you a paycheck, right? So they give you they give you a chit book for 2 meals, and they give you 3 white coats, and it's like and then they pay you. Yeah. And by paying you, that means as an intern. And you still have to go pay student loans and all this student loans and all that stuff.
Serious student loans. Yeah.
So I was making, and I was now I'm able to see patients. I'm able to put in IVs. I'm able to write medicines. I'm able to do all this stuff that doctors do, et cetera. And there's plenty of supervision and all that as an intern. But you're running around, you're doing stuff. You're putting in chest tubes and stuff. I was making $2.80 an hour.
Isn't that funny?
10 years later, okay. Board certified in general surgery, which means I can do trauma, I can do hearts, I can resect colons, I can go ahead and put burr holes into somebody's head, I can go ahead and dispense dangerous drugs, et cetera, et cetera. And then I'm a fellow, so I'm PGY 10. Right. I can run a service. I can take students through this. I can run a service. I was making $4.50 an hour.
Wow. So, it's interesting you bring that up because people always assume, oh, you're a doctor, you're rich. It's like, well, no, there's so much more to it.
No, there was a lot of top. There was a lot of top ramen. I was a saucier for top ramen.
Wow.
Yeah. So it got to the point that I could do miracles with
because it's hard to get through all that. Yeah.
So and it is what it is, opportunity cost and all that kind of good stuff. But back in the day, that's what it was.
That's interesting. Yeah. Like I said, a lot of people, I think they assume doctor. Like you're instantly come out with here's your Mercedes and here's that. Yeah. But they don't realize I mean, obviously, and also student loans.
Yeah. No, I still have guys my age that have just paid off their student loan.
Crazy, right?
And it's worse now because these poor kids, the college guys are coming out.
What's the average cost of medical school now per year?
Well, first of all, undergraduate to get there is $65,000 in tuition, and then you want to eat? That's $10,000. Oh, you want a roof over your head? That's $10,000. So about $85,000. So for private.
And you went to school in Philadelphia, and some very expensive cities.
So now these kids are coming out with about. For med school, because it's another 4 years, and you can't work during med school. There's no chance.
Right.
So they're coming out with from undergrad about $250,000, and about med school from another $250,000. So you're about $500,000 in the hole, starting on day one. And the issue with that is it's starting to influence. Well, starting has been for a while, influencing folks' choice. So folks that want to go to the inner city and be the internal medicine guy, a gal, or plastic surgery, or the family practice guy, and really want to serve your community. So now there's a movement afoot, like here in Las Vegas, is the first 2 classes got their tuition free. Bloomberg actually came up, I think it was Bloomberg and NYU, that's spotting a couple of classes, medical students for free.
Interesting.
I think that there was a huge donation to
basically they would have to agree to do public service.
I don't know what the provisos on that are.
Right.
And then there was another Bezos' wife, her name's escaped me, I apologize, just went ahead and gave a ton of money to historically black colleges to get those folks in med schools to go ahead and get those folks to do that and serve underserved populations. So that, I think, people have recognized it, and I think people are coming and to the aid of that, which I think is spectacular.
Yeah, because I mean, you want people to also practice in inner city. You want them to be able to be open to those kind of
or rural, as well.
Yeah.
So, and especially in a rural state like Nevada, it's tough recruiting folks.
Because pretty much, if you need that kind of service, you have to pretty much come down to here or Reno.
Yeah.
Right?
So so if you're in East Ely or Winnemucca and Elko, and actually they do have good docs and they do have good hospitals and sort of thing. But like anything else, it's access. If you need a liver transplant, obviously that's different than other stuff.
What's your for people that might be listening that are thinking about, or maybe they're in medical school or they might want to go to medical school, what's some advice that you would give?
Well,
first getting ready to go down that path.
Yeah, it's a calling, not a job. If you
don't think you're going to get rich,
no
don't
chance.
do it for that.
No, absolutely not. Go to MBA school. Go to law school. Absolutely, if you're in it for the money, get out now. Yesterday, because and I tell the young ones this too is somebody's going to ask you to do something at 4 a.m. And you're going to get out of bed and you're going to do it, whether you're an OBGYN, whether you're a surgeon, whether you're internal medicine, it doesn't matter. And it makes it a lot easier to get out of bed if you love what you do.
Right.
And you're going to have some hard times. Some patients are going to die on you. Some patients are not going to follow what you want.
Yeah, because you've done trauma, you've done all that, right?
All of it. Yeah. And I've been blessed with my training. And it's hard. It's hard on purpose. And not that the training's hard, but the day-to-day.
Sure.
There's going to be some tough times. So if you think this is a pathway to the big house, the fancy car, stuff like that, pick a different pathway.
Right.
But those folks that stay and those folks that is a calling for, and if those folks, and the folks that love what they do, they're better. In as much as they read more and they talk about it more and they're excited about it more. Yeah. And it's those sorts of things. So I think, and again, I'm completely biased, but I think it's still a very honorable ancient profession. Yeah. And I think that I think it's the best profession in the world. I'm biased, and because I is one. Yeah.
But you do have a passion. I mean, that's something that we've known each other for some time now,
right?
And that's something I've always enjoyed when I've come to see you. Like we always have good discussions,
right?
And I can feel your passion and your intensity for that you still love it.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And most people don't love their jobs, so that's
true.
A rarity.
And would I encourage my children to go into it? Yes. Yeah. So again, if it's for the right reasons,
right?
So if they're the right personality and temperament, and if they're empathetic and it's for the right reasons, then absolutely.
And that job, or it's really more than a job. And that calling, it's just a long process, right?
It's a long process.
It takes for a long time to get to where you are, but then it's still growing and
always growing. And it's long on purpose, especially in general surgery. It was 7 years, and the reason why is because you want to see enough and do enough. You want to see how appendicitis presents differently, and it does. Right. Nobody kind of walks in with a sign on their "Hi, I got a hat happy," and you think, "Oh, wait a minute, this is kind of weird." But I had 2 other guys that kind of present this way. I think it's X,
right.
and that just comes from being there and being attentive and learning,
having the experience,
and having the experience of all of that. So yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Again, we covered a lot of territory. What's some of the things that you look forward to in future episodes? Like, what are some of the things you really want to talk and go over?
So again, all things plastic surgery, and for me, I can do this for hours and hours. Much of the dismay of my wife.
And we jump around a lot, but it's fun because it's fun to hear how you're thinking through the process and discussing different subjects.
So the plastic surgery stuff, and again, it's usually when I go to a charity thing, when we used to have charity things, and people would come up and say, "Oh, so what do you do?" And I say, "Oh, my friend wanted to ask."
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
My friend wanted to ask.
I got this bump.
I got right, and so my wife's like, "Yeah, I'll be back in 20 minutes." So, which is I don't blame her. And but having said that, we'll talk all things plastic surgery. I think we'll talk about growing up in Vegas, which is always something.
Yeah, and we actually need to get more also to talking about the boxing aspect. I know we were talking about the bubble that ESPN and Top Rank.
Yep.
Because your wife actually works with Top Rank.
Yep. So Top Rank has really, I think UFC, Top Rank, the NHL, NBA have done a tremendous job of trying to go ahead and give us content, meaning sports, which we all love,
dealing with this current
as
situation
safely as we possibly can. And no fans. Et cetera, which is a bummer because you want fans yelling and screaming and all that kind of stuff.
A lot of people, since we're talking about that, a lot of people hear the term the bubble in terms of sports. So
the bubble.
What does that actually mean?
So the bubble basically, and all of those organizations have done a terrific job with that. And I talked to the folks at Top Rank and read through their stuff before they submitted.
So it's Top Rank Boxing, which is the world's, I guess they're the largest
they're
boxing promoter.
So they've been around since 1966, and they've had, everybody from Muhammad Ali to Mayweather to Pacquiao to Duran to
and that's Bob Arum.
Bob Arum's company. Been around 50 years, and so with that, all of a sudden, you can't have fans, can't have sports.
Right.
So we're trying to figure out a way because one, you want fight fans to see fights, and they have contractual obligations to not only the boxers but also to ESPN and all that. So they happen upon the bubble, which means how do we have fights, because it's the ring is a certain space by certain space, but with the least amount of people around them, right, in this pandemic, potential exposure. So what they figured out, how do you go ahead and you put somebody in a bubble? So what happens is and that goes for fighters, it goes for trainers, it goes for folks that are announcing the fight,
crew and everybody.
For the crew and for everybody. So what happens is you go, and the MGM did a really phenomenal job, by the way. So they really kind of sectioned off a section of their vast property, and they set up a gym, and they set up a side gym that they can train, and they side up
everybody stays in a certain section of hotel rooms.
And so basically there's a block of rooms. Like fighters are on one floor, officials are on another floor. Okay, so what basically happens is, hi, I'm going in the bubble, and you have your name and stuff, and you go ahead and get tested, and then you go up to the room and you sit in your room for about 4 hours until the test comes back. If you're positive, you go home. Okay, if you're not positive, then they'll escort you down to where everybody else is, where there's the food and all that sort of thing. And then you can't leave the bubble because you leave the bubble, you're out.
How long are they in for the bubble?
It depends. Some of the ESPN guys were there
a couple of weeks,
months,
right? Oh, really?
Months. And so they get a little squirrely, but by the same token they're making money. They're working, right? So it is what it is. Most people go in and out, a week at a time. That depends on how many fights.
Because they just have to get retested.
And so when you have the fights, you had fights for a while there on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and so those folks were there for a while. And then now it's like about every week, and so some people can kind of come in and come out. But they've done a really good job of that and keeping everybody safe. And it's also the Nevada State Athletic Commission, those officials. It's the referees. It's the timers.
People don't realize how much is involved.
Oh my God! And
how many people, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So involved in that. It's not like, hey, let's have a bar and let's put on a fight.
And they're doing. I think the ESPN is doing. They're doing weekly.
Yeah. So now it's a week, and there's one coming up on Saturdays, which is a loaded card, and so it's not just guys.
Do you have a passion for boxing? Is that something you always liked?
Do. Well, yeah. I mean, growing up in Las Vegas, of course, I think that you're a fight fan.
Yeah, because we've talked about that. There's all the fights were here.
Oh, they were here. It was really all of that. Right. And so yes, and so now I actually get to participate in it and actually.
Awesome.
Be with the guys and sew a lot of them, and that sort of thing. So, but yeah, there's some really exciting things.
Part of what we talked about is we're going to bring hopefully some of those people in.
So it's
our guests.
What we talked about is the intersection of sports, science, art, all that kind of stuff.
Vegas,
in Vegas is my office, of all things. It's kind of weird, but yeah. So hopefully we'll go ahead and not only talk about these folks, hopefully drag them in here kicking and screaming, and hopefully let them loose about their stories and their
Yeah,
interactions.
that's. I mean, I can imagine, especially like Bob. Those guys have been around just forever. Right?
Oh well, you go to dinner with these guys, and they have stories on top of stories, and it's not only him, but it's the guy who comes to dinner.
Yeah, because they've all been that team's been there
done
together.
that, and they'll tell you and they'll tell you stories about other guys. So they'll tell you Sinatra stories, and they'll tell you
because they knew all the Vegas.
Oh my God! Right? Yeah, all of these guys, which are old Vegas, and 98% of the stories are true. And oh yeah, I was a busboy at Piero's for a while. Another one of my jobs, which is a whole nother story for another day. But yeah, so and they bring those guys, or the cousin that used to work at X, he's got a plenty of story. So wherever you go, and especially after a couple of adult beverages, and these guys start talking, it's hilarious.
Yeah. So we have a lot to cover. I'm excited. Like we have so much more coming up.
Yeah.
Any last words on this episode?
No, I think we covered a lot of ground. Again, we can double back and go over any of these subjects in more depth. But right now, kind of a Whitman sampler of everything. But there's so much more to come. Stick around. It's going to be quite the wild ride.
And again, can you let folks know how to find your practice?
Sure. So a couple things, and we love questions. And I was going to say, if you out there in podcast land want to hear about something, by all means, comment, make some suggestions, give us a call, and we'll try to get it on for you. Numbers and contacts is of course, the website, which is www.jjrothmd.com, jjrothmd.com. And then also our number, old school telephone, is 702 450 0777. By all means, we like to listen. We love questions. There's no such thing as a silly question.
Yeah, and we have our social media pages along with Dr. Roth's website, so you can find us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and you have your own social media pages too.
Yep, absolutely.
For the practice. So.
Yeah, and we try to put some good information out there. And if there's something you want to see on any of those social media stuff, let us know that too.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to talking with you next time.
It sounds fantastic. Great stuff.
Thank you so much for joining us. For further information, please visit the podcast website link for Dr. Jeffrey Roth. See you next time.